I will never forget the look on his face when the truth hit him, the way his eyes widened, how his lips trembled. He thought he had won. He thought he had played the game right, but the game had played him instead. My name is Jabu, and this is my story. My father, Baba Kanja, was a legend in our city, not just a mafia boss, but the boss. He ruled the underworld, controlled the money, the deals, the power. Then he was killed, not by an enemy, not by the police, but by his closest friend, Uncle Jojo. I was just a boy when it happened, but I saw everything. I saw the blood, the betrayal, the way Jojo cried fake tears at the funeral, while secretly taking over my father's empire. For years, I plotted in the shadows. I had no power, no money, no men, but I had something more dangerous: patience. I worked my way into Jojo's gang, starting from the bottom. Small jobs, then bigger ones. Jojo liked me, saw me as a son. I was climbing, waiting, watching. But I wasn't alone in this. Leila, Jojo's daughter, was always by my side. She had grown up rich, spoiled, but she was smart. She hated her father's world, or at least that's what she said. She wanted out. She wanted revenge. We planned together, whispered in the dark, kissed between secrets, and when the time was right, we moved. I had it all planned. I had Jojo in a trap. The gun was in my hand. Jojo was on his knees. The moment of revenge had finally come. But then, bang! I hit the ground. Blood on my shirt, not Jojo's, my own. I looked up, and there she was, Leila, holding the gun, smiling. The police stormed in. They dragged me away, framed, betrayed. And as I sat in the back of that van, handcuffed, looking out through the bars, I saw her standing next to Jojo's throne, the new queen of the streets. And me, my story is not over, not yet, because patience is what makes kings rise from the dead. The game is not finished, not by a long shot. In that prison cell, I thought it was over. I thought I had lost everything. But the truth is, the real game had only just begun. They might have locked me up, framed me, but they couldn't break me. They underestimated me. And worse, they underestimated her. Leila, in the months I spent behind those bars, I learned a lot. I learned that Jojo, even with all his power, was weak. He was holding on by a thread, and that thread was Leila. She was ruthless, clever. She took over the empire, but she wasn't content. She wanted more, more power, more control, and she had it all. But power, like money, is never enough. She was hungry for something else. I heard whispers in the prison yard. Old allies of my father, men who had once worked for him, had come looking for me. They told me everything. They told me how Jojo's empire was falling apart. They told me how Leila was struggling to keep it together. The cracks were showing. She was fighting her own battles, trying to control everything. And that's when I knew. I knew it was time to make my move. I didn't just sit in that cell waiting for an opportunity. I created one. I started making connections. I found a way out. I made a deal with the right people. I gave them what they wanted in exchange for what I needed, my freedom. And soon, the day came. They opened that door. I stepped out. I was free. But freedom wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted to take it all back. I wanted to take back what was mine. Leila thought she had won. She thought she had the throne. But she didn't know I was coming for her. The game was about to change again. This time, I wasn't playing to win. I was playing to take it all. The streets weren't the same when I got back. Things had changed. New players, new rules. But it didn't matter. I had one goal: to bring down Leila and take the empire back from her cold hands. I started small. No one knew who I was, just some guy coming out of nowhere. I slipped into the shadows, working my way through the underworld once again. I went after the people who used to work for my father, men who'd been loyal to him and had now either switched sides or disappeared. Slowly, I gathered them, rebuilt my father's network. And then I made my move. I sent a message to Leila. Simple. Director, you know who I am. You know what I want. I'm coming for you. I didn't need to threaten her. She knew I wasn't bluffing. The game was changing, and she had no idea what was coming. She was scared, but not enough. Leila was no fool. She knew how to play this game and she wasn't going to give up her throne easily. But she didn't understand. She didn't understand how far I was willing to go. The first strike was subtle. Her inner circle, her trusted lieutenants, began to turn on her, not with a loud bang, but with whispers and rumors. One by one, her allies were slipping away. They didn't want to back a weak leader. They didn't want to follow someone who was so eager to be queen that she had forgotten what it meant to rule with strength. I made sure those rumors hit her ears, each one more devastating than the last. Leila, terrified of losing control, clamped down harder, but the tighter she held on, the more she squeezed the life out of her empire. Then I went after the business. I hit her operations where it hurt. Money. I disrupted her deals, stole from her shipments, and crippled her sources of income. Every time she thought she had regained some control, I tore it from her hands. She sent her men after me. They couldn't touch me. I was always one step ahead. Leila started to unravel, her paranoia growing, her decisions becoming more erratic. She thought she could stop me by throwing her weight around, but she didn't realize when you play with fire, you get burned. One night, I finally faced her. She stood in front of me, the same way she had when she betrayed me, but this time, she wasn't smiling. Her eyes were wild, desperate. "You think you can take what's mine?" she spat, her voice shaking with fury. "I don't think. I know," I said, my voice low, steady. Leila's grip on the empire was slipping, and she knew it. She reached for a gun, but I was faster. I grabbed her wrist, twisting it until the gun clattered to the floor. We were face to face now, the tension thick in the air. She was broken, afraid, and it was in that moment that I realized it wasn't about taking revenge anymore. It was about taking back what was mine and ensuring she never took it from me again. But just as I was about to finish it, just as I was about to claim victory, everything changed. The door slammed open. Leila's bodyguard burst in, guns raised. I barely had time to react before the shots rang out. I felt the cold sting of bullets, my body jerking with each hit. My vision blurred, but I managed to catch a glimpse of Leila's face as she watched me fall. There was no victory in her eyes, just cold calculation. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by darkness. The game, it seemed, wasn't finished. Not yet. I was alive. And Leila? She had just won again. But this time, I wasn't done. I wouldn't stop. Because when you have nothing left to lose, you fight with everything you have. And the game, it was far from over. When I woke up, everything was blurry. The world felt distant, like I was looking at it through a fog. My body ached, and I could barely move. I could hear the beeping of machines, the soft hum of the hospital. But the first thing that hit me was the weight of my thoughts. Leila. She had done it again. She had outsmarted me. I tried to sit up, but pain shot through my body. My chest felt tight, and every breath I took was labored. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to focus. I needed to get out of here, needed to find a way to turn this around. If I didn't, everything I'd worked for would be lost. My hand instinctively moved to my side. I felt the bandages, the fresh scars. I was alive, but I wasn't sure for how much longer. The doctors said I was lucky to survive the gunshots. Lucky. What a joke. As I lay there, too weak to do much else, I heard a voice. Low, familiar. The sound of footsteps echoing down the sterile hospital corridor. The door creaked open, and I saw a shadow standing there, watching me. "You should be dead," the voice said. It was Leila, but her tone was different. It wasn't the cold, calculated voice I had heard before. There was something else, something almost regretful. "I was never meant to survive," I said, my voice hoarse. "You've always had a way of making sure you win." Leila stepped closer, her eyes not cold but distant. "You think this is over?" she asked softly, her eyes tracing the bandages on my body. "You think I'm done with you?" I wanted to get up, to grab her by the throat and choke the life out of her, but my body wouldn't obey. My head was spinning. I had to wait, to think. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. I want to finish what we started, she said, her gaze never leaving mine. You and me, one last time. No more games, no more tricks. Whoever wins takes it all. No one can stop us. I let her words sink in. It sounded too easy. Leila had always played the long game. She was dangerous, more dangerous than I had ever realized. But I wasn't the same boy I used to be. I had learned, I had changed, and I wasn't about to let her get away with what she had done. You can't win, I said, feeling the fire inside me reignite. You've already lost. You just don't know it yet. She stared at me for a moment, her expression unreadable, and then, with a small, almost imperceptible nod, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. For the first time, I knew that the final battle was coming. And this time, it wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't about power. It was about survival. As the days passed, I grew stronger. My body healed, but the hunger for revenge never left me. Leila may have been running things now, but she had made one mistake. She had underestimated me. She thought that by trapping me, by nearly killing me, she could win. But I knew something she didn't. The deeper you bury someone, the harder they fight to get out. I started making my plans slowly, gathering my strength, my men, and my resources. I knew I couldn't take her down alone, but I also knew that she was no longer the woman who had once been my ally. She was the enemy, the one who had betrayed everything we had once fought for. I reached out to the people who had once worked for my father, the ones who had disappeared when Jojo took over. They remembered the old days. They remembered Baba Kanja and the power he had built. It didn't take long for them to see the truth, that Leila was a fragile ruler and her empire was crumbling. One night, as I prepared to make my move, I got a call. Jabu, it's time, the voice on the other end said. Leila's holding a meeting. It's her last chance to secure her reign. I knew what that meant. This was it, the final showdown. I was going to make sure Leila never saw me coming. The city's underworld had been my playground once, and now I was ready to take it all back. The city felt different that night. The air was thick with anticipation, like a storm was about to break. I could almost taste it. The coming battle, the blood that would be spilled. I knew this was the night everything would change. Leila had been holding meetings in secret, gathering her loyalists for one final push to solidify her control. But her grip was slipping, and tonight it would slip for good. I had everything in place. My men, my allies, people who remembered who I was and what my father had built, had been quietly gathering in the shadows, just like me. They were ready to move. We had eyes on every exit, every door, every alley. The moment Leila made her move, we would be waiting. I stood at the edge of the rooftop, watching the city below. The lights flickered like stars in the night, but they couldn't hide the dark underbelly of the streets. I'd learned a long time ago that in this world, loyalty was a fragile thing. People would turn on you in the blink of an eye for power, money, or survival. But I wasn't like them. I wasn't playing for those things anymore. I was playing for something much more important: revenge. Leila had no idea that I had already infiltrated her inner circle again. She thought I was weak, that I was still recovering from the gunshots, that I was a man with nothing left to lose. What she didn't realize was that I had been waiting for this moment, waiting to take everything she had built and rip it apart. The time had come. The meeting was being held in one of the old warehouses near the docks, a place where deals had been struck and alliances forged in the dark. It was a fitting place for Leila's final act, but it would be her last. I was already in position, my men spread out silently, moving into their spots. We couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Tonight, it wasn't just about taking her empire, it was about making sure she never had the chance to rise again. As I moved closer to the warehouse, I could hear the muffled voices inside. Leila was in there, surrounded by her most trusted lieutenants. They thought they were untouchable, that their queen was untouchable. But they were wrong. They were just as expendable as anyone else in this world. I gave the signal and my men moved into place. Then, the doors exploded open. The flash of gunfire lit up the night. I moved swiftly, dodging the chaos as my men poured into the room, taking down anyone who stood in their way. The shock in Layla's eyes when she saw me step through the door, oh, it was priceless. She never expected it. She thought I was dead, thought I was finished, but I was back, and I was taking everything from her. You thought you could control this world, I said, my voice low and steady, cutting through the panic. You thought you could be this world, but this is mine. It always has been. She reached for a gun, her hands trembling. You're too late, she stammered. You don't have what it takes to run this anymore. You'll never be as good as your father. Her words were empty, desperate. She was grasping for any ounce of power she could find, but she was losing. I took a step closer, watching as she backed away, her eyes wild. She thought she could still intimidate me, still control me, but I wasn't the boy she betrayed. I wasn't the son of Baba Kanja who trusted her. I had learned, I had grown, and now she would pay. You think my father was the key to this world? No, I said, my voice cold as steel. He was just the beginning. I will finish what he started. With that, I gave the order. My men closed in, trapping her in the corner. She fought, of course. Leila was always a fighter, but it was too late. She had lost control. And now, it was my turn. One of my men moved in, holding a gun to her head, but I stopped him. This was mine to finish. Leila looked at me, her breath ragged, the fear in her eyes finally showing. Please, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't want this. I just wanted to be like him. I wanted to be powerful. You should have known, I said. Power isn't given, it's taken. With one swift movement, I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward me, staring into her eyes one last time. Her expression was a mix of rage and regret, but there was nothing left for her. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely audible, but I wasn't listening. I had already made my decision. I ended it right there. As her empire crumbled, I stood victorious. But even as I looked down at her fallen body, I knew one thing for sure. The game was never truly over. There was always someone else out there, always another power struggle waiting to happen. But for now, the streets belonged to me. And Leila, she was just a reminder of what happens when you trust the wrong people. I wasn't going to make that mistake. As I stood over Leila's lifeless body, the weight of the empire settling back into my hands, I couldn't help but feel a strange emptiness. Victory felt hollow. Maybe it was the knowledge that power was a never-ending cycle, that in a world like this, the throne was always up for grabs. Maybe it was the price I had to pay for it. The lives lost, the trust shattered. I had fought so hard, but what now? Was I truly the ruler of this underworld? Or was I just another man holding onto a chair, waiting for someone to knock me off? I didn't have long to think about it. A voice echoed from the shadows of the warehouse, deep, commanding, and full of menace. You're strong, Jabu, but you're not invincible. I spun around, my heart pounding. My eyes narrowed as I searched the room, looking for the source of the voice. Out of the darkness, a man stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes as cold as steel. He wore a leather jacket, a faint smirk on his lips, and an air of confidence that made my stomach tighten. This wasn't someone I recognized. He wasn't part of the old guard. Who are you? I demanded, my hand instinctively going to my gun, though I knew better than to be reckless. The man stepped closer, unfazed by the threat. Name's Kazi, and I'm here to take what's mine. Kazi's words hit me like a slap. I knew what he meant. He was no ordinary thug. He was the new blood. The new king, trying to carve his place in the city, trying to seize what Leila had built and what I had just taken back. But I wasn't about to let another challenger ruin my plans. You think you can just walk in here and take what's mine, I said, stepping toward him, my voice full of venom. This city is mine now. Leila's dead. The power's mine. Kazi's grin only widened. The game's never over, Jabu. You don't own this city. You just borrowed it. There's always someone else, someone waiting in the shadows, ready to take over when the time is right. He paused, his eyes locking with mine. I've been watching you. I know who you are. I know what you want. But understand this, Jabu. I'm coming for you, and I don't make promises I can't keep. My grip tightened around my gun, my mind racing. I had just fought to take everything back, and now this new guy wanted to take it from me? He wasn't the first to think they could come for me, and he wouldn't be the last. But there was something about Kazi, something dangerous. He wasn't like the others. He was smarter, more calculating. He didn't look at me with the usual arrogance of men who thought they could take me down. No, Kazi looked at me like I was just another piece on a chessboard, and he was playing the long game. You don't scare me, I muttered, my voice cold. You don't even know who you're dealing with. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Kazi replied. I've been watching you for a long time, Jabu. And trust me, you've got no idea what's coming. And with that, he turned and walked out of the warehouse, disappearing into the night. I stood there, frozen for a moment, my mind reeling. The weight of his words sank in like a stone in my gut. Kazi wasn't a joke. He wasn't just some rookie trying to take over. He had something else, something dark and deadly. And just like that, the game had changed again. I had just become the hunted. The shadows were growing longer, and I knew this fight was far from over. Kazi wasn't the end. He was the beginning of something new, something bigger. And no matter how much I had won, no matter how many enemies I had taken down, I knew one thing. In this world, there's always someone else coming for the throne. And right now, that someone was Kazi.